Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz joins me now for more on all of this. Martha, first, what do you make of these conflicting timelines?
First of all, it is very difficult. It is a very complicated process to call up the D.C. Guard because D.C. is not a state. So there is a chain of command there that they have to follow. But the Pentagon will say that they actually gave the approval after 2.5 hours, after some and many calls. So there is a little conflict there about exactly when that call came and exactly when they were given the approval. But one of the things I really want to point out, Diane, is I think people think of the National Guard can just race out there and get their riot gear and be on the steps of the Capitol. It really doesn't work that way with the National Guard. First of all, they are generally doing humanitarian missions because they hadn't been called up in great numbers because Mayor Bowser decided she wanted 340 D.C. National Guard just to do traffic, and then this horrible event happened. They're not like active duty, quick military response. These are citizen soldiers. So you call up the National Guard and you have to gather people from their homes, from their jobs. So that's why there was a delay, but there was clearly also a delay in giving that order and those conflicting accounts within about a half an hour of each other as well.
And Martha, Major General Walker also pointed out that there were conversations about the optics of having the Guard there dressed in their uniforms with their equipment. And those conversations, he said, didn't happen over the summer.
I don't think they did happen over the summer. They didn't happen at all over the summer with BLM protests and the reaction to that. I remember standing on the Lincoln Memorial taking some photographs of National Guard fully kitted out in their body armor and everything else. And it's true. The military did not like the optics of that, nor did the city. In many ways, this was probably an overcorrection to that. They didn't want that image again. But they also didn't realize what was going to happen. And we have to remember this was a huge intelligence failure as well, what happened that day on January 6th. So the Pentagon official in the Pentagon who said he didn't like the optics, that doesn't sound like a great response, given the fact that the Capitol was being overrun at that point. But eventually it got to the acting Secretary of Defense. I know the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was involved. We got to get more National Guard up there to help out law enforcement. But from my own perspective that day on Capitol Hill, it was the lack of law enforcement in general on Capitol Hill, just having no idea what they were about to face and really, truly being so overwhelmed. And as we know, those Capitol police officers, Metropolitan police officers and others who tried to keep those rioters back, those insurrectionists back, were very brave, very courageous as a whole, and it was that lack of numbers where they were overwhelmed. And when the National Guard did finally show up, and I think it was about 5:30 in the evening, they were very organized, and by then a lot of the people had obviously left, but they quickly took control.
And Martha, Capitol Police now say that they're beefing up security ahead of more potential violence on March 4th. What do we know about that?
Well, there are some bulletins about that. I think in many ways this is them trying to be extra careful. They've got some intelligence, and we don't know much more about that intelligence than that there could be some action tomorrow of people, so-called 3%ers, a militia group trying to take over the Capitol, trying to breach those fences and those barriers that they put up around the perimeter of the Capitol, and the National Guard trying to overwhelm them as well. I don't think there is a great deal of concern at this point, but they want to be extra careful and make sure they do get those bulletins out, because there was a bulletin that didn't make it up the chain of command very far on January 6th.
And Marcia, I want to ask you about Iraq, too, because we are seeing some new video now of the launch site of the rockets that targeted an Iraqi base hosting American troops overnight. What do we know about this attack so far?
There were approximately 10 rockets that landed at Al-Assad Air Base. We don't know who did it, but in the past it has been Iranian-backed militias. One of them is saying, no, it wasn't us. That happens to be the one that the U.S. did a counterattack for something they did a couple of weeks ago where they attacked an American base and a contractor who was working for the Americans was killed. Several American contractors were wounded, as well as a service member was wounded. And President Biden, in his first order of an attack since becoming president, launched a counterattack on them. That was in Syria. And now President Biden has said, be careful, don't come back and try this again. And yet somebody did. And I think one of the things you have to do, Diane, is look at Iran and Iranian-backed militias. There are several people who do not want to engage with the United States, who do not want to get back in that nuclear deal. So they're kind of pushing the Americans. They're pushing the U.S. to perhaps overreact.
All right, Martha Raddatz, always great to have you, Martha. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.